Good morning, Sangha.
Good morning.
Have a few announcements quickly before we get started today. Let me see, 1 second. Okay, just want to remind everyone about a couple of retreats coming up. We've got Letting Go in 4 Stages with Martine Batchelor coming up on May 15th, and the Wild Heart Spring Retreat with Andrew Chapman and Mikey Knoll coming May 24th to 31st, and that will be here at Heartwood in person, our first in-person retreat of the year. Venerable Panawati continues to offer a study on the Mahayana discourse, What is Cultivation? And that occurs on Friday evenings at 4 o'clock. The end time varies, but it starts around 4, and you can register for that on their website if you haven't already. We are continuing to offer items to the community at low prices at Thrifty Treasures, and all the proceeds are benefiting Heartwood Refuge. We continue to need volunteer support, so if you're interested, just let us know. And also, fully vaccinated Sangha members are now welcome to join us for Sunday Dharma here in the Dharma Hall at Heartwood. And we just thank you very much for all your support, and we look forward to seeing you soon. And here's Venerable Panidipa. Thank you very much.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good afternoon, Sangha.
Afternoon.
We've been using dependent origination to help us access the truth of non-self, or emptiness, or voidness, as it pertains to, or with using the aggregates of clinging or craving, which are the form, feeling, perception, thought, consciousness. And so there was a great question that someone asked me when we were together on Sunday. And I want to make sure that I gave her, I think it was a woman, the information that was necessary for her to really answer her question and to use it as a tool for non-selfing. Was that you? Okay. Do you remember the way you phrased your question?
It was
Is there non-dependent origination? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Is it codependent?
Dependent co-arising.
Codependent.
Is dependent
co-arising.
the same as dependent co-arising?
Dependent co-arising.
Okay, so instead of dependent arising, dependent co-arising.
So two things arising at once.
Well, in the scheme of using it as a tool for understanding non-self, understanding that the experiences that we have and that we call life are not created by or precipitated by a person or self or soul or an energy or spirit, that it is created through the process of what is called dependent co-arising or dependent arising or dependent origination, and that there is no spirit or being or personality or emptiness, or not emptiness, no personality that is contained within form that is the motivator or energizer of this experience, but that the experience itself originates because of craving. And so the schematic, of course, is that the first item of necessity in creating this whole idea of dependent origination is ignorance. And specifically, ignorance of what? Ignorance of suffering, ignorance of the noble truths of suffering. That our problems, our agitations, our discomforts are not they exist because of craving, not because of an I that exists or me or a mind that exists. So it is true in the sense that for me to have suffering, I must have established before suffering or gone through a schematic or a sequence before suffering of feeling and materiality and consciousness, so that the existence that we perceive, that we enjoy, or that we suffer from, is dependent on items that have arisen before it. And if those items or those items do not present themselves, then suffering cannot exist. So it's about understanding that birth, old age, suffering, disease, all of these things are codependent on other things that arise before they can happen. So these things occur because of the sense gates and consciousness. So eye, ear, tongue, nose, form, thought, or mind. The consciousness of that has to arise, the sense gate has to work, and there also has to be color and shape or form present. So, would there be a world, or would there be an experience if we didn't have the sense gates. You understand? Okay. So, in other words, would there be anything to see if I didn't have an eye to see? Would there be anything to smell if I didn't have a nose to smell, and if I didn't have nose consciousness, and if I didn't have eye consciousness and ear consciousness? Would there actually be anything there? And so it's dependent arising says, because I have these things happen. And conversely, if I don't have these things, if one of these things, one of these items in the sequence of being of I want to be careful that I choose the right word. This is why I've come back with this, because I want to make sure that I don't cause more problems than I solve, or I bring more cloudiness than I bring clarity. So, if I get angry because I saw something, I realize that something that I saw was enabled by the fact that I've got a working eye, I've got working eye consciousness. There was a form visible to the eye, outside of me or outside of my form or my presence. And there was enough light for me to see it clearly so that I know what it is. So, when I see what I see, and it will have two effects for me. It'll either make me unhappy, or it'll make me happy, or it'll make me neither happy nor unhappy. So either I'll like it or I won't like it, or I'll neither won't like it or dislike it. And depending how I choose to perceive that external Dharma depends, either way, if I like it or I don't like it, either way, there will be a desire to either hold on to it or to push it away. And this is the craving that will cause the irritation or the unhappiness or the disappointment or that will cause me to lose my happiness. However, if none of those things, or if one of those things are absent, then I will not have the experience, so I will not suffer, if you will. I will not go through the pain of that experience. So therefore, that pain or that experience is dependent on everything else before that being in place. So going back and saying that if I couldn't see out of my eyes, if I didn't have eye consciousness, then I wouldn't be aware of what I saw that made me angry or made me desire it. So therefore, it is dependent, the whole experience that I have with this thing that I see is dependent on those building blocks or those constructs presenting themselves beforehand. So nothing, we learn that nothing exists on its own, but exists because of something else that was present, of something else that was present. And so therefore, we know that there's no entity or no identity that is specific to this Dharma that I'm looking at, that everything is empty, and that I need to establish a sequence of events in order for me to be aware that it's present. And if any of those things are absent, I won't see it. So it's dependent on certain things being available, certain things revealing themselves in sequence in order for me to have the experience that I have. So we know that different dharmas, different entities are influenced differently. In other words, one person might be happy because this happened. Someone else may be unhappy because it's the same event. We see the same event, but one person is happy. I'm glad this person got elected. Another person is unhappy because this person got elected. So we know that these events and my experiences because of these events are not in and of themselves absolute. And so if I want to enjoy a status of peace in what I encounter in what we call life, I must know how the different energies that I establish in the chain of dependent origination, how those items influence my well-being or my lack of well-being. So we have the situation with the old farmer and his son, right? And so when the horse showed up at the farmer's house or in the farmer's yard, all of the villagers, because of their own experiences, were happy for the farmer because they would be happy for themselves if the same or a different horse or the same horse showed up in their yard. So they all, as a community, went to the farmer's house and said, "You must be very happy because this horse showed up in your yard." Well, the farmer in his wisdom simply said, "We'll see," which means that he did not grab onto, he did not crave or cling to the item that was left in his yard. He just said, "We will see." He didn't deny the object, but he didn't cling to it either. So therefore, when the horse was a part of the disabling of his son's leg, the breaking of his leg, because he didn't have any stake in the horse or in the event itself. He didn't cling or push away the energy of that moment, that event. He didn't cling to it, he didn't push it away, he didn't crave. So because of the fact that that energy was missing from the interaction, it didn't bother him either way. He wasn't bothered by the fact that the horse hurt his son, because he realized that that was a Dharma, or that this is all just Dharma, that everything that arises passes away. And it's the holding on to or the pushing away from, in other words, trying to influence because of my own idea of what will make me happy, that that if I, in the chain of dependent origination, if I do not establish preferences, if I don't have cravings or desires for what this means for me, I won't have any suffering. Which means I will not be created. There will be no personality that is created by my desire, which then opens up a whole new world or a whole new experience or a whole new life, simply based on whether I liked what happened or didn't like what happened. So it's a way of understanding that things just don't happen to us, but we play a major role in our own suffering. That it's not what somebody else is doing to me, it's what I'm choosing to paint my experience with, the colored brush that I'm choosing to paint my experience with. And when I understand that, I stop blaming you for my problem, because you're not my problem, I'm my problem. And it's all I have to do is simply let go of some of the sequences that were involved in my discomfort, and understand that the reason that I'm having this discomfort is because I choose to try to hold on to something that I can't hold on to. That my unhappiness is dependent on this, and if I let this go, my unhappiness will also go away. Will that make me happy? Or if it does, then I've just fallen back into the same trap on the other side. So it teaches us how to be our own master, how not to have a dependency on what someone else or some group or some entity wants to believe about me. In other words, my day won't be good unless I think everybody else thinks I am good enough to have a good day. And then I spend my life and my energy trying to persuade you to have the view about myself that I want you to have about me, because that's the only thing that will make me happy. So my happiness has been given away to someone else. In other words, I will be happy if you make me happy. If you do the things that I want you to do, if you pass the test that I want you to pass, then I'll be happy, because you have demonstrated to me that you care about me. And what we know is that people like you sometimes, and sometimes they don't. Same person. So if I put all my power in that basket and give it to you, that simply means that, number one, I do not understand what the cause of my discomfort is in the first place, because I'm saying that you are the one that can make me happy. And the truth is that the only one that can make me happy is the choosing of how I take and look at a situation, and whether I crave for it or whether I am repulsed by it, whether I want it or whether I don't want it, whether I like it or whether I don't like it. And then the holding on to that, the clinging to that, which then causes my problems. If I understand how that works, then I understand that all of the power to be at peace is already established in this experience that I call form, in this experience that I call consciousness. That it has nothing, that thinking all of this out here is real is a part of the illusion. Thinking there is someone to see all of this as real is a part of the illusion. So when we look at the schematic for dependent origination, we do not see any presence, any establishment of an I or mine in that whole presentation, which then helps us to understand that these aggregates of being that most of us take as being me is just nothing. It's again, it's an ignorance, because I don't understand how life, how the world is constructed. And it has nothing to do with, or it has, I do not except in a very general way exist. But there's really no you or me, because none of this is you or me, but this is what we have believed to be because this is what we've been told. So we get a name, we get a social security number, we get an ID. We go to school and people tell us that we're good or we're bad or we're never amount to anything or we're the smartest thing on the planet. And depending on what we hear, all of that is believed as a part of my construct. And I spend all my life either convincing you that that is true or what you think about me is not true, if it doesn't agree with my own paradigm. So understanding dependent origination and understanding that the 5 aggregates of clinging are not who we are frees us from all of the pain and searching and choices that we make incorrectly about what it is in our lives will make us happy and what it is in our lives that won't make us happy.
Thank you.
So I hope that we haven't had a conversation yet. Questions? You have, okay.
So we get caught up in the skandhas or the aggregates because of the nature of, even though knowledge says when everything's calm, these, this could happen. Partly so. And then you get caught up into the hatred or the they think I'm this or whatever. So the knowledge isn't accessible now to say this is what's going on. Then what?
Well, in my opinion, it will be. Once I've convinced myself that this is the reality. It's only because I'm still not convinced that I am not who I think I am that I'm still having problems with me. So it's important that we study the ideas of the presentations of dependent origination so that we can truly understand where we've misunderstood the teaching of voidness or emptiness or non-self. A part of the difficulty is that we spent our whole life establishing an identity, of setting boundaries, of getting people to respect us, of getting people to like us, or getting people to just leave us alone, depending upon what our plan, what our intention is, or what we think will make us happy. And so we've done all of this work, and we finally got our lives to where we want our lives to be. Everybody sees me the way I see myself. Everybody respects me. Everybody loves me. They think I'm a good person. And all of a sudden somebody comes up and says, okay, now you've done that, you got to give all of that up. That's years of work that you put into becoming Dr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so. And it's hard. Give it up. But I'm just saying that in order for you to establish that island, establish that place of peace, which means there is no self stirring up everything, then you'll just have that problem. So as long as you don't appreciate the first finger pointing, which says, with ignorance as condition. In other words, the whole road is paved with these misunderstandings about who you are and who you're not. And as long as you can't let go of what you think you are and just be who you are without any I or me or mine present, you will have trouble. But it's because you make it yourself. We make it ourselves by insisting on some level that I am. Are you familiar with the 10 fetters? Okay. The very first fetter. Fetters are the things that keep us in what our experience tells us is the cycle of rebirth. And the first fetter is the belief in a self and soul. The number one problem for our unhappiness is believing that we are a self and a soul. But like I said, if we can't, what we're trying to do here is to establish framework that says, okay, this is how you believe you are constructed. This is how you believe you are. Okay, sit down and find that personhood, that energy. Find it. So when we say, okay, slice and dice yourself. Look to the inside. Look to the outside. See who is really there. And once you use all of the tools that enable you to look inside yourself, to slice and dice yourself, to investigate your construction on the many levels that it is available to you, from body parts and body fluids to elements. And it says now, no matter what level that you might think you exist on and you are a part of, look at that, examine that. Do you see you? And if you see you, or if you don't see you, then you've got to let that concept of identity go, because it's not there. And so that's where we end, and that's where we begin, right there. What is it that makes me think I am? Is it because somebody told me? You know, because I read a book about it? Most of the books that are available to us at this time help us understand that we are not who we think we are. But there's this struggle that when they try to explain to us, then who are we? We're still back here fighting with that first piece of information. Denying it and saying, well, wait a minute now. You know, the first question that we have to ourselves is, if I'm not who I think I am, who am I? Because we feel that we've got to be somebody in order to function. In many of the Buddha's teachings, he tells us, or so it says in the books, he tells us, that he teaches the middle way. And what that means to me is that there is no eternalism and there is no annihilism. In other words, the words don't eat you up when you die and you're gone, but you still don't go to this place of foreverness either. So, as we learn the different techniques of meditation, what I recommend you do is, once you use the methods that are available to examine your internal state, what you're made of, who are you inside, what's your construct? Are you really a body? Are you really sweat and blood? Are you really elements? Are you really atoms? What are you? Then once you've established that, look at what you've eliminated, what you are now void of, empty of, and what's left. And so we can take it very quickly and say, may I suggest that if you are not something that will live forever, and you're not something that will disappear after this cycle, what's left in that picture for you to be? If you're not temporary and you're not permanent, what's left for you to be? See, you haven't even thought about that, have you? When you start to study the phenomenal and the numinal, when you start to work with concepts that suggest to us that there is a curtain or a wall or a gate, where on one side there's this specific existence, man, woman, dog, cat, stars, quarks, all of the things that we believe exist. And we believe they exist because we can touch them, we can see them, we can smell them, we can bump into them. You must be there because I see you in that chair. Okay? And you agree with me that you must be here. But they also say that on the other side of the curtain, there is something too. And well, what is that something? Well, that something is what is something before there's something. That all that is in existence was established out of non-existence. And what you can do is take some of the meditation techniques that you have learned in order for you to go beyond where you're going to that place where you're not. That place of infinite consciousness, of neither perception nor non-perception. How in the hell do you experience neither perception nor non-perception? That means there's this whole reality, this whole dynamic that specific existence came from, is made up. In other words, there's a body shop somewhere where that has all of the parts that are needed for us to be who we think we are. But they can't, but you can't have a body part and the uncreated energies that are used to make body parts in the bin where there's uncreatedness. Make sense? Okay. So in your practice then, you've got to allow yourself to open yourself up to be more than you are, to be everything that there is, to be that whole basic construct or existence where your presence can be used to construct all that is constructible. Are you getting the picture? Over here there is no picture because there's nothing. But it's the thing that you make everything out of. Okay. Try it. I mean, again, the Buddha says, don't take my word for it. Well, he wasn't talking about me. Well, may have been, I don't know. But try to move as far beyond what you think is real as you possibly can through the techniques that are taught. And you will begin to feel a shift from being who you are to something else. And you may not want to make that shift. But I'm saying, wouldn't you like to go find the parts that make you up, that are used in the construction of you? Because what that means then, or what that allows us to do, is to not be limited, but we then become everything. We become pure potential. Well, we even become before potential. We are accessing all possibility and all impossibility. All right? Have a good day. Any questions before we leave? Everybody's looking like, whoa. Any questions from the, no? Okay. All right. May all beings be liberated from suffering. May we be well. May we be happy. May we be peaceful. And remember, when we talk about we and I and me and yours and mine, we're talking about not ultimate truth, but the truth that is limited and limiting. So, when we talk about I, we're not saying that I believe in an I. I'm just saying that on this level of discussion, it would be difficult for me to talk to you and talk from the position of not being anything. Because it would make for a strange conversation. But in the Dharma hall, this is the place for strange conversation. Because we're saying, be free. You've accepted you accepted the erroneous concept of limitations. And that's not true. It's not so. You are not limited to who you think you are. And you're free to be all that there is. And it has nothing to do with being deserving, because you are worthy, whether you think you are or not. And remember that in our study, in our work, morality is that first level, while you're still here, while you're still limited. The whole idea of doing the right thing compared to the wrong thing is very small in its scope. And keep working on this. Keep asking yourself the question, am I empty or am I limited? And then ask whoever you think is more powerful than you to help you see the fact that you are unlimited. Have a great day. Thank you for the question, by the way. I'm happy that you came back today. And I'm happy that you asked the question. So, did it help you?
Yes.
Well, that's all that counts. Because you are everyone else, right?